Athletic, and then Mike Griffith from Dog Nation.
Hey, Dan, I'm just curious your feelings on the performance of the defense this year and whether, I mean, you're first in the SEC in yards per play, so statistically still good, but obviously the Alabama and the Florida games kind of stick out. Do you look at this as you all have to spend this offseason looking at some things to see how, as a defense, you can catch up to these offenses?
Yeah, I think the offensive game is, it's changed a lot. I think every season, Seth, we go through and we say, what can we do better? What can we do different? And this offseason, I don't see that being any different. We're going to reassess and evaluate, and you have to adapt and change as the offenses adapt and change.
Is there more that, like, do you have to just huddle up even more this year to say, all right, what can we do to catch up to these offenses?
I think at the end of the day, you have to look at 2020 and realize how unique a year is. This year is, and this year is different. But I wouldn't say we're going to be, it's not advantageous for us to treat this a lot different from a standpoint of we have to do more or have to do less. I just think you have to really take a fine-tooth comb, go through everything you've done this season, evaluate it for what it is. Was it the call? Was it a personnel matchup? And how can you improve it? But I wouldn't want to say we're going to be more detailed this year than we were last year. It's more about execution and identifying problems and adapting.
Coach, I just want to ask you, just as far as teams gunning for, I know every team has a game plan, every team studies defenses, but obviously what you guys did last year, everybody had to have Georgia circled. How many different things did you see that looked like it was schemed specifically for you, as far as things where you said, wow, we hadn't seen that one before?
I think every year you're gonna, as the season goes on, Mike, you start to say, okay, these teams are copycatting a game plan that you see or something you've given up. We know, ultimately on defense, anything we give up, we're going to see that again. Because like you said, teams are looking for a way to attack us. And I think that's certainly showed up, but that's pretty consistent with each year. Whenever teams haven't had a lot of success running the ball on us this year. So they have to find unique ways to run the ball. What's been successful, what's not. And same thing goes with the passing game.
And then I guess just to follow up, I mean, this maybe oversimplified it. To the outsider, it looks like when 99 is in the middle of your defense, you guys are different. Is it really just that simple? Because against Missouri, it was like, wow, this defense looks completely different with him out there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference when 99's on the field, no doubt. Jordan makes us a much better defense. I also think Missouri's scheme was a little bit different in what they did. You'll see we did some different stuff against Missouri as well. Each team you have to assess it. Each game's a new game. Each Saturday is a new Saturday, and you roll out a different plan and ready to execute. But it definitely helps when we have Jordan inside. I know Nakobe appreciates Jordan being out there in front of him.
Okay, let's go to Chip Towers from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and then Anthony Dasher. Questions for Coach Lanning or Nakobe Dean.
Yeah, for both Coach Lanning and Nakobe, if you could take this second. But I'm not sure that I can tell that you've seen a quarterback quite like Desmond Ridder during this season. So I just wonder about some of the unique aspects that he brings to trying to defend him.
Yeah, Desmond's a player, and I'll let Nakobe hit on it here as well. But, what makes Desmond unique, I don't think he gets enough credit for, is his ability to run. I think he's the second winningest quarterback in Cincinnati's history. Has a really strong arm, is up for basically every award for the quarterback. And I would put him in the top 3 quarterbacks we've played this season, in my mind, as far as execution, understanding of an offense. They ask him to do a lot. And you can tell he makes a lot of checks at the line. So he's obviously a really savvy player from an intelligence standpoint, but he can make all the throws and is a dynamic runner as well.
Yeah, definitely. You can definitely tell by the film that he's a playmaker. He runs that whole offense runs through him, and like basically he's the heartbeat of the offense.
Thank you.
Hey, Nakobe, I kind of wanted to ask you what Coach Lanning was mentioning a while ago about getting Jordan back. Just explain, how he makes your job easier as an inside linebacker.
Oh yeah, he makes it a world easier for me. he eat up them double teams and everything like that, and he takes pride. He takes pride in it. Also, he just don't do it as his job. He takes pride to eating up double teams and making sure that I'm free. You know, he come to the sideline and asks me all the time, like, what's it looking like, how they getting in my face and everything like that. So it's, you know, it's great to have him back.
Okay, let's go to Mark Weiser, Athens Banner Herald, and then Dean Legge with Dog Post.
And what do you see in terms of, since the Florida game, in improvement with your defense? How much do you look at that as adjustments you guys have made? How much in the level of opponent? And then how does Cincinnati kind of fit in terms of what you faced offensively?
Yeah, you know, I think we made a lot of improvements from a standpoint of communication, you know, adapting. This has been the year of adapting, and every week's a new week. In a sense, I think our guys have done a really good job of taking to them, getting prepared to play every Saturday, hoping we get to play every Saturday, and then every once in a while finding out you're not going to get to play. But we focused on technique. We focused on fundamentals more than anything. You know, I think we've tackled really well this year, and our guys have embraced that, you know, throughout practice. And that's probably the number one way to eliminate, you know, explosive plays, is to be good tacklers, be really sound there. But I think that's something we focused on. Cincinnati's offense is really good. I mean, they're a top 20 team on offense and on defense. I think that's why they play really complementary football. But, you know, for our guys, you know, I think we've seen steady improvement in our communication and our ability to adapt based on somebody being out. You know, I think we've done a better job throughout the season. Our coaches have done a really good job adapting, you know, and our players have done a really good job adapting to who's in, who's not in, and putting those pieces together.
Hey, Dan, when y'all start dealing with recruiting and the way that y'all have recruited lately these last few years, do you and Kirby sit down, or do the defensive staff look at the board and say, hey, we need this particular player? Or do you say, hey, we've got this spot we've got to fill? How do you manage those two things?
Yeah, it's a combination of both, Dean. I mean, ultimately, Coach Smart has a plan for everything. He's very detailed in everything that he does, whether it be recruiting, practice plan, organization, the way we handle our players here. But yeah, there's a certain roster number that you're looking for kind of at each position. And then you have to assess need over, you know, position need over, you know, what do we utilize? You know, this defense has changed over time based on the offenses we face as well. Like how many 300-pounders do you need on your roster as opposed to how many DBs? So I think that's all a piece of it. We're trying to find the right guys that fit within the system that we run defensively, but enhance, you know, what we can do and build upon, if that answers your question.
All right, let's go to Jake Rowe, Dogs 247, and then to Jay Black, WSB Radio.
Coach, when you look at all of the different options and players that you could have that could decide to move on and that could decide not to play in this game or even declare after the game, is it exciting to kind of get them all back, or the ones that are sticking around? I know Kirby has said you guys are excited about the ones that are going to be playing in this game, but you know, seeing guys like Malik who's bound for the Senior Bowl and you know, Jordan Davis, who probably could go to the NFL after this year if he wanted to, Devontae Wyatt. How exciting is that to see those guys come back and a chance to coach them once again?
I'm thrilled about every single guy we have in our program. You know, obviously the guys you mentioned are guys we're really, really excited about. That certainly doesn't change. My ultimate goal as a coach is that these guys can achieve at the highest level. You know, they reach all their goals here at Georgia, and then they have the opportunity to play long careers, you know, in the NFL if God's willing. And that's exciting for me to have those guys have those opportunities. I think ultimately we talk about the opportunity to come get a first-class education at Georgia, play really elite defense against the best competition. And I think that's really appealing for our players to have the opportunity to do that. So I know I'm excited to coach these guys. I'm blessed to be in the situation I'm in every day to coach the players that we get to coach here at Georgia.
Jay Black, do you have a question? All right, let's go to Charles Odom from the Associated Press, and then David Pascal from Chattanooga.
For Coach Lanning, you mentioned at the start, this has just been a different year. Do you think that there is a direct relationship between COVID and scoring being up nationally?
I don't know that I'd say that. Yep, maybe, probably. I don't know the answer to that, Charles. I know that ultimately, offenses are ahead of the curve right now, and you could say it's related to COVID, but I know within our walls that we have a standard of defense here that we take a lot of pride in, and that doesn't change based on situation. We take a lot of pride in our mental agility and our ability to adapt. But if you sat here and said that offenses aren't scoring more points, you'd be lying. That's obviously happening. So we have to continue to adapt and build off of that. Is some of that related to COVID? Yeah, probably. Is all that? No, certainly not. And I don't think we'll ever use that as an excuse in our program. I know that.
Yeah, this is for Dan and Nakobe. Kirby said a couple of nights ago that Monty Rice has not been really full strength since the Alabama game. I was just curious I know you're not into making excuses, but what adjustments has that resulted for both you, Dan, and Nakobe?
I'll let Nakobe answer that first.
Well, personally, we haven't really made any much of adjustments. I talk to Monty every day about how he feeling and everything with his foot and everything. And he basically he keeps it real with me. If he tells me that he need to be pushed or he need me to step up, need me and Quay to step up and play more and be there for him. So, in that aspect, it has changed, but other than that, it hasn't really changed too much.
The one thing that's probably been an adapting piece for us is the multiplicity of, each week not knowing necessarily who you have. You probably ask guys to know more positions. And in turn, David, that's going to create, a little bit more simplicity on one side of the ball, because if you have to learn multiple positions or be able to do multiple things, you need to shrink your package to be able to adapt to that.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to Roddy Nabulsi with UGAsports.com and then Connor Riley with Dog Nation.
Your freshman defensive backs, we can see them in games sometimes, but there's a lot of times we don't get to watch practice. So could you give us a breakdown of your four defensive backs, Branch, Kimber, Burns, and Keely Ringo? Kind of let us know where Ringo is in his rehabilitation.
Keely's been able to actually practice with us more and more as the season's gone on. He's not ready for competition yet, but I'm really excited about, sometimes you worry about a guy that has an injury. How mentally engaged are they going to be able to be throughout the season? It's tough when you're not going to play a game. And I've been impressed with Keely's attention to detail, really picking up some schematic pieces of our defense. And really all of those guys are doing a good job of developing, learning the scheme, and growing. I think every one of them will benefit from an off season in the weight room, getting stronger, and building. But yeah, each one of those guys have done a good job of being engaged, ready for their opportunity. And there's a great chance you could see them, within some of these games, whether it be this next game or in the near future.
Hey, Dan, Aziz is someone who was, speculating on whether or not he was going to play or not, but he is. How does he, how has he improved this year as a player, and what does he bring to your defense?
Aziz is a lead by example guy. He does exactly what you ask him to do. From a player standpoint, I think he's just become more refined each year. You talk about player improvement from where he's come from when he first got here to what he's become, this year. His ceiling's really high. I think he's developed a lot of trust within our players. They trust that Aziz is going to do his job. And he's also a guy, talk about players, everybody wants to work on what they're good at. Aziz is a guy that's attacked his weaknesses and said, hey, here's the things I want to improve. And you see that show up on film. I think he can pass rush on anybody in our league. I think he's really good at setting the edge and playing the run, which is something you have to be able to do both in the SEC. You can't be one or the other.
All right, let's go to Brandon Sudge, Macon Telegraph, and then Palmer with Dogs 247.
Hey, Dan, so in terms of your defense, how much did everything change when you didn't have Richard after the Kentucky game? I mean, how important has he been to your defense and the potential of having him back? How much does that excite y'all for Friday afternoon game?
Ultimately, if you look at Richard's career at Georgia, Richard's been a playmaker, and it's exciting when that guy brings a certain level of energy and juice when he's on the field. He finds himself around the ball. That's really exciting. We don't just completely change our entire scheme because one guy's in or out, but when you have experience, there's nothing that replaces experience on the football field. And Richard has a lot of experience, suiting up for the Georgia Dogs. So that's a big piece of it for Richard. and certainly excited if we get an opportunity to see him on the field.
Along those same lines, how would you assess the play of Chris Smith this season in replacement of Richard?
Yeah, I think Chris has done a good job being adaptable and ready. And Chris is a guy that's, been patient, waited his turn. You always point out guys beginning of the season, you don't know when your moment's going to come, but we're going to know when you're ready. And you get out there on the field and ready to perform. I think Chris has done a good job of that, operating within the scheme. And he's gotten the more reps Chris has gotten, the better he's gotten each week.
Okay, we've got time for maybe 2 more questions, and let's let anyone who wants to jump in go ahead.
Hey, Dan, this is Dean Legge again. I wanted to ask you, was there a time in the season or a moment in the season when you realized how bad the pandemic was and how bad y'all were how difficult it was for y'all to deal with it, and not just in theory, but in practice?
The mental agility piece is gone, really starting all the way back to this summer, Dean. And I don't know if there's one moment that sticks out over the other. It's just every day you come into work, and in the past you said, okay, I have an expectation for what we're going to be able to attack today, what personnel groups we're going to be able to use, what people we have available. And we've realized really quickly in 2020 that that's not a reality. You have to be ready to change, whether it be 5 minutes before a meeting, somebody gets dinged or somebody goes out. I want to give credit to Ron Corson and Coach Smart for really having a plan. Every single day we've stepped in here. If this happens, here's our reaction. Our trainers have done a really good job, and our coaches and players have all done a really good job adapting, whether it's us moving a guy for a position for the day. I don't know if anybody could script it and you anticipate what it's going to look like this season. But each day's just really taught you better be ready to adjust on the fly. And that's been consistent. I don't know if there's one point. It's really been throughout the season we've had to be able to adapt to that.
Okay, let's take one last question. Let's go to Jonathan Simmons.
I think you're on mute, Jonathan.
There we go. Yeah, Nakobe, quick question for you. So with everything going on this year, an unprecedented year with the COVID, what does it mean for you guys as a team to be able to get out here and play in a New Year's Six Bowl against a team like yourself that many people considered was a championship playoff team?
It feels great, definitely with a year like we had with everything going on. Everything from not just football aspect of things, but just school academically and, mentally going through everything, how everything changed and being adaptable to everything that has been happening. It's just been crazy. So for us to, have the opportunity to, play a New Year's Six Bowl, and for me to do it with, some of my brothers that, I might not ever play ball again with, because they moving on, but just to be able to do that, it's great. It's a great feeling.
All right. Thanks, Coach Lanning. Thanks, Nakobe. You're excused. And
appreciate you guys.